First Lady, Madam Dr. Bongi Ngema-Zuma, is inviting women and men to have a dialogue on how we can best move the discussion of women emancipation forward. The theme for the dialogue is Men and Women Come Together, and will seek to interrogate the possible solutions and way forward on the issues that are facing women. This, of course, ranging from femicide to inequality in the workplace, as well as all other forms of violence and abuse women face within communities. To tell us more, I am happy to be joined in studio by the First Lady herself, Madam Dr. Bongi Ngema-Zuma, and with her is Commissioner at the Commission for Gender Equality. We know and see him all the time here on the program, Mbuyiselo Botha. Good to have you on the program, Madam Zuma. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Pleasure, and thank you so much. Nice to see you again.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, so we are now obviously emphasizing, particularly during Women's Month, the idea and the conversation, men and women must come together. Why? Why have you decided on this theme?
Because, Leanne, when we talk about things that affect women, especially it happens a lot around Women's Month, we talk to ourselves when we just are, women alone.
My biggest fault with that, absolutely.
So I thought when we address issues of violence, for instance, it's both parties involved. Yeah. Also, when violence happens to our children, a father and a mother is both affected. So it won't help to just be mothers alone talking together or talking to themselves, but let's involve the men as well. And also let's look at things together and see if it's us women that are perpetrating the violence, where have we gone wrong? Let's just open up to each other and discuss these things.
I must say, it's one of my biggest faults when it comes to Women's Month, is that we organize all these wonderful events and we all lock ourselves in a room and we talk to each other as if we don't know our own problems. But, and I've often emphasized that we need to include men in the conversation, that you need to understand what we're going through, and it's great to see that you're on board. But, I mean, are you aware of how women think? I know it's an impossibility to understand how a woman thinks.
Well, it is.
But in terms of the problems that we go through?
Well, I think there are various problems, and they're not homogeneous, the problems. It's not one size fits all. But with the foundation, what Madame, I think, is doing, is for me, it's a very innovative and creative way to say, how do we then, especially that it's about speaking to business in particular, because more often than not, we tend to think that this is a government issue, when in fact, business must come to the party, so to speak. So I think that for the first time where you'd have a platform to say, but what is it that, especially businessmen, what do you do to address issues of violence? And how do we then make sure that men get involved? And I thought when we got this invitation from the Commission, it gave us an opportunity, because as a Chapter 9 institution, we are of the view that you can't solve this alone, as Madame was saying.
Yeah, I mean, and you talk about it being government business. I'm going to take it a step further and say that it's actually a family issue, because at the end of the day, a mother and a father, you are raising a son who is going to be a husband, who may be a father, who, if they see you treating your wife, your children in a certain way, they're going to emulate that as well. Certainly. It's the example we set in our family life that it'll affect our actions going forward.
Certainly.
So, I mean, how do we get this going into the values and the psyches of South Africans?
I think first is to accept that there is a problem. The escalating figures of violence every day. When you tune into the news, any station, there will be a report of a lady or a girl or a mother or whatever that has happened. But we have to accept as society that there is something that is wrong, and then how do we then identify what caused or what perpetrates the escalation of that? Yeah. Maybe it's the way that the families are set up now. In the olden days, it was traditional families where there was a father and a mother, and like it was a peaceful family, I would say, because it's a well-organized family. But now there's a lot of children that are raised by single parents, for instance, and their experiences are different from those that live with both parents. But even those that live with both parents, if one parent is abusive, the other is not. I'm not saying, I'm avoiding saying if a man is abusive, because there are cases where women also abuse their men.
Absolutely.
So those are the things I want us to open up to and say it's not a one-sided thing. Let's stop acting victims. Yeah. But let's address things as they are.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is a reality. Men are also victims of abuse. But somehow, when we look at statistics, obviously
so
the figures, you know, I mean, 1 in 5
one-sided.
women are abused in South Africa. And that scares me. I mean, we've got 5 women sitting here in studio, and the reality is that one of us may be living in an abusive relationship. And it's not right. What is at the root of this? I mean, you work with men all the time, Mbuyiselo. You are talking to men who perhaps, I don't know if they are coming out of abusive ways, or they feel like they want to get better. What drives them? What is the problem?
Well, Leanne, issues of power, issues of inequality, but also sometimes and more often issues of feeling threatened in a relationship, because more often than not, instead of the majority of complementing one another, each other, what we then do is get into a very toxic competition, which ultimately leads to violence, the femicide we're talking about. So it's important that this discussion, what the foundation does, what Madame is doing, is so important that we begin to say, but the men that are going to be part of this dialogue, what is it that we can do together with women? Because more often than not, what we tend to do also as men is to say, but you know, there are problems without identifying, but what is our role? What is it that are we hurting? You know, are we frustrated? And then if so, what can we do? Because, you know, it takes two to a tango.
Yeah. Do you think women and men get each other? Do you think that there's this massive lack of communication and understanding as to how we both feel? Like how I feel in an abusive relationship and as how a man feels being the abuser. Do you think that this communication
Well, there's
is
also
lacking?
this, we talk past one another,
Yeah.
you know, we don't talk to each other, to one another, you know. It's this them and us. That's why then part of the Madame's program is, I think for the first time to say, then let's have this forum, let's have this talking, you know, in the month of women, where traditionally you said both, that it has always been that, no, where you lament and condemn and lampoon men and, you know, vilify men. I think it's about time that you say, but the men can also be catalysts, can assist. Men can be part of the solution, other than them being only part of the problem.
Absolutely. Men need to be part of the solution.
Absolutely.
We're not going to get anywhere if we don't have the buy-in of men and we're not inviting them to engage in the conversation with us. What are you hoping to achieve?
Well, it's to start a dialogue that will not stop here, because it's now opening the can of worms and saying what is in there and how can we then start moving on with this dialogue, and where can we head to in terms of finding solutions. It may not be answers to everything, but it's a starting point.
Yeah.
So it is heads of business that will be there, a lot of them in the audience, and then it will be professionals. Because sometimes we look at violence and we think it's only people that are illiterate or people that are of a certain class that we can associate with violence. And that is where things go wrong, because we hide things that happen to us. And we don't recognize that we are being abused until such point that it becomes, you know, out of control.
Absolutely. You take off the suit and tie and it doesn't matter what you're hiding behind. There is still that character inside. So you know, abuse knows no boundaries. Yes. And that's the reality. You're also raising funds for your foundation.
We are raising funds for our World Diabetes Day, which is coming in November.
Good.
We know that World Diabetes Day is commemorated on the 14th of November. This year's theme is women and diabetes. Yeah. We know that 199 million women are living with diabetes of the 415 million people that have diabetes. And 1 in 7 births is affected by gestational diabetes. Yeah. So we have to go to the communities that do not reach information easily in November. So that is why we're calling those that can give a little bit, so that we raise funds for those that cannot.
All right, we'll leave it there for this morning. Good luck. I hope it goes well. And I think this is a great start to many more dialogues, hopefully. And besides the dialogue, the action, which is needed. Yes. It really is needed. The Commissioner at the Commission for Gender Equality, Mbuyiselo Botha, and of course to our First Lady of South Africa, Madam Dr. Bongi Ngema-Zuma. The First Lady will be hosting a women and men dialogue this coming Saturday. It'll be happening at the CSIR Conference Centre in Pretoria. Again, thank you so very, very much. All right, on with other issues.